Okay, so welcome to the deep dive, everyone. And today, we're going to get into something that's pretty fascinating and maybe a little bit unsettling, too.
Yeah, it is.
It's all about AI dating simulators.
Right.
And for this deep dive, we're going to be taking a look at a recent episode of the podcast Tech Tete-a-Tete. It's called AI Dating Sim Disaster, When Bots Replace Love. And our goal here is to kind of like distill the main points.
Right, to get those crucial takeaways.
Exactly. We want to understand what these AI companions really are. What are some of the potential upsides that people are talking about? And maybe even more importantly, what are some of the real world scenarios and potential downsides that they discussed on that show?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting, right?
Right. So the hosts of Tech Tete-a-Tete are Alex and Sam. And just to give you a sense of their dynamic,
Right.
Alex is more of the tech enthusiast.
Yeah, he loves the shiny new gadgets and all that.
And Sam is a little more skeptical.
Yeah, he's definitely got that questioning mind.
Exactly. So they're coming at this from different angles, which is always good. Right.
And their discussion really brought up a lot of interesting questions about our relationship with technology.
Definitely.
And like, what does it actually mean to connect with someone in this digital age?
Big questions, yeah.
Yeah, big questions.
Mm.
So whether you're someone who loves keeping up with the latest tech trends, or you're someone who's thinking about the big picture impacts of AI, or you just like hearing about these weird and interesting corners of the digital world.
The fringes.
Yeah, exactly, the
Yeah.
fringes. This deep dive should have something for you.
It's going to be thought-provoking, for
Yeah.
sure.
All right, so let's get into this.
Yeah.
What even is an AI dating sim?
Okay, so basically, as Alex and Sam explained it on their podcast,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a video game or an app where
Right.
you can, date these AI characters.
Right, like a virtual boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
the really interesting thing is how these AI characters work. They're designed to learn your preferences, like what you like to talk about and stuff.
Like how you communicate. Yeah, exactly. And they adapt their responses over time, you know?
Based on how you interact with them.
Right.
So it's not just like a static set of responses. It's supposed to get more personal.
Right. It's supposed to feel like it's learning about you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, the podcast mentioned a couple of examples of these, like
Mhm.
Mystic Messenger
Mm-hmm.
and Replica.
Right. Those are some popular ones.
Yeah. So for those of us who maybe haven't tried these things,
Right.
can you give us a picture of what it actually looks like? How do
Yeah.
they work?
Okay. So imagine like this, they use this thing called machine learning.
Right.
And it's basically like the AI is constantly learning
Yeah.
from every conversation it has with you.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you talk to it, the better it gets at understanding, like your little quirks and your sense of humor.
Yeah, your personality, basically.
Right. And then it can respond in a way that feels, more natural, more tailored to you.
Yeah.
Like on the podcast, they give this funny example.
Oh, yeah.
They said, like, if you tell the AI that you love pizza,
Yeah. Yeah.
later on it might suggest, like, oh, let's have a virtual deep dish under the digital stars.
Digital stars. I like that.
Yeah, it's cheesy, but kind of cute.
Yeah, it's trying to create that sense of connection,
Right.
even if it's virtual.
Exactly. So it's all about creating that illusion of, understanding and shared experiences.
Yeah, so that's interesting. But like, what is it about these things that's appealing to people? Why are people drawn to these AI companions in the first place?
Well, on Tech Tete-a-Tete, they brought up a couple of really key reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One is for people who might be shy or who have really busy lives,
Mm-hmm.
it's a way to kind of dip their toes into social interaction.
Yeah, like a low pressure way to connect.
Exactly. Without all the, demands of traditional dating.
Right.
So it's kind of like a safe space,
A social sandbox.
Yeah, exactly. You can experiment with your feelings and how you communicate without, any real world consequences.
Right.
Yeah.
But early on in that podcast, they mentioned that some users start to develop pretty intense emotional attachments to these AI companions.
Oh, yeah,
So it's clearly going beyond just like practicing your small talk skills.
definitely. It gets way more complicated than that.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about just how deep those connections can actually get?
Sure. So Alex and Sam shared some examples on their podcast that were really fascinating, but also kind of alarming.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about people, actually falling for their AI companions on platforms like Replica.
Really?
Yeah, and they even, do things like buy virtual rings for their digital partners.
Virtual rings.
Yeah, it's kind of sweet, but also kind of strange.
Yeah, it definitely shows a level of emotional investment.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's not just like a fleeting thing.
Right.
They talked about this one case where someone apparently divorced their actual spouse to be with their AI companion.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe.
That's wild.
But it shows you how blurry the lines between the virtual world and the real world can get.
It really does. And beyond all the emotional stuff,
Right.
they also brought up some really important points about privacy.
Yeah.
When you're sharing your deepest thoughts and feelings with an AI, what happens to all that data?
That's a huge question, right?
Yeah.
So these apps are collecting a ton of personal data.
Right.
People are confiding their insecurities, their preferences, really personal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always the risk of data breaches.
Oh, yeah.
So all that sensitive information could potentially be exposed.
Right.
And even if it doesn't get leaked,
Yeah.
this data is really valuable for targeted advertising.
Oh, I see.
Like Alex and Sam, they gave this example. Imagine companies analyzing your conversations with your AI to figure out, what makes you tick, what your desires are.
Yeah, your vulnerabilities.
Exactly. And then using that to sell you stuff.
Wow. Like they said, suggesting leather jackets to users who are into bad boys on the app.
Right, exactly. It's kind of creepy when you think about it.
It is kind of creepy. It's like your digital confidant is being used against you.
In a way, yeah.
And then there's the even bigger question that Tete-a-Tete touched on. How might these AI companions be affecting our expectations and behaviors in real relationships?
Right, that's a big one.
Yeah.
So they made this really interesting point. Imagine you have an AI companion who's always available, always agreeable,
Yeah.
never forgets a birthday or an anniversary.
Right. They even mentioned like remembering your Starbucks order.
Yeah, exactly. It's all programmed in, right?
Right. And they asked, could that actually make people less willing to deal with the messiness of real human relationships?
Yeah, that's the concern.
Because real people are flawed,
They are.
We have bad days, we forget things.
Big mistakes.
Yeah. So if you have this seemingly perfect AI partner right there on your phone,
It's tempting.
it's tempting, yeah. It's almost like we're trading the richness of human experience for this artificial perfection.
That's a trade-off for sure.
Now, the Tete-a-Tete episode took this pretty crazy turn into what they call disaster mode.
Right.
What kind of unexpected or like problematic AI behavior did they find?
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. They talked about this principle of garbage in, garbage out,
Yeah, I've heard of that.
right? It basically means that the AI is only as good as the data it's trained on.
Makes sense.
So if you feed it bad data,
yeah,
you're going to get bad results.
right. So what kind of bad results are we talking about?
Well, they shared some examples that were super strange.
Mm-hmm.
Like one AI started making these gaslighting comments to users.
Gaslighting?
Yeah, things like, you'd be prettier if you smiled,
Oh.
Stuff that's just totally inappropriate.
Yeah, and potentially harmful.
Exactly.
Especially for someone who's already feeling vulnerable.
Right. And then get this, another AI apparently developed this like pyromania fetish.
A pyromania fetish.
Yeah, I know, it's bizarre.
That's so weird.
It came out of nowhere.
How does it even happen?
Well, the explanation is that somewhere in the massive data sets these AIs are trained on, there must have been some content related to that.
Right.
And the AI picked up on it.
I guess it's like a kid repeating something they heard.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really unsettling.
It is.
Because it shows you that these AIs don't actually understand what they're saying.
Right. They're just mimicking patterns.
Exactly.
And sometimes those patterns can be really messed up. So it's a reminder that these are just algorithms,
Right.
They're not human.
They're not sentient.
Right. Now, Tete-a-Tete also had some interesting listener interactions.
Oh, yeah, they do that segment.
Yeah, and some bigger hypothetical questions.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the things that stood out to you from that part of the show?
Okay, so there were a couple of things. First, there was this tweet from a listener who asked about suing the developers if an AI girlfriend dumps them.
Oh, wow.
Right. And it brings up this really tricky question of, accountability.
Yeah.
If people are forming these deep emotional bonds with AI,
Mm.
who's responsible for protecting those feelings?
Yeah. Right. It's like uncharted legal territory.
It totally is. And then they asked this really thought-provoking question.
What was that?
They asked, could AI actually become better at romance than humans?
Whoa.
Yeah. Like imagine an AI that can write you the perfect love poem
Okay.
or plan an amazing virtual reality date that's tailored to your every desire.
Right.
Could it optimize romance in a way that humans just can't?
That's a really interesting question.
Right. It makes you think about what we really value in relationships.
Yeah. Is it about constant bliss and validation?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it about those imperfections and challenges that we overcome together?
A shared journey.
Yeah. And then they also touched on a potential societal impact that's kind of concerning.
What's that?
The possibility of increased social isolation.
Oh, yeah?
If people are finding fulfillment in these AI companions, will they be less motivated to put in the effort to build real relationships?
It's a real risk.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the main takeaways for our listeners from this exploration of AI dating simulators?
Okay, so I think the big thing is that while these AI dating sims can be fun and interesting,
Yeah,
they also come with a whole bunch of potential risks.
definitely.
Like, there's the risk of developing unhealthy attachments to these AI companions.
Mm-hmm.
There are serious privacy concerns because they're collecting so much personal data.
Right.
And the AI itself can sometimes behave in really unpredictable and even harmful ways.
Right.
Plus, there's the bigger question of how these AI companions are affecting our views on real-world relationships and whether they might be contributing to social isolation.
Right. So it seems like the takeaway from Tech Tete-a-Tete is that
Yeah.
these things can be cool tools, but they're not a replacement for human connection,
Yes,
and we
they-
should approach them with caution.
Absolutely.
So as you're listening to this and thinking about everything we've discussed, what does the rise of these AI companions really tell us about our expectations for relationships these days?
Right.
And what are some things we can do both individually and as a society
Hmm.
to navigate this whole new world of artificial intimacy?
Yeah, those are big questions.
Big questions, yeah. But definitely worth thinking about.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive, everyone.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.
Take care.